Welcome everybody to another Builder Stories by Agent.ai. My name is Kyle James, your host, and today I'm here with another long-term friend of mine, Paul Schmidt, who is the VP of Marketing and Innovation at SmartBug Media. Paul, welcome to the show.
Kyle, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited, one, just to catch up because it's been way too long since you and I have talked, but also I know the kind of tinkerer you are and the kind of stuff you're building, so I'm excited for you to share whatever you can because there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and I'm sure y'all are definitely deep in playing and figuring stuff out, especially as it comes to like sales and marketing tools, right?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to sharing some of the use cases of AI and agents and things that we're doing at SmartBug and things that how I've been kind of my story from how I really got into using AI and everything like that. So yeah, definitely let's jump in.
Let's start there. I love origin stories. I know a little bit of yours, but the audience doesn't. So let's talk about kind of who you are, where you came from, and like get into like why you started building agents and go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So I won't go far as back as my my musician days, but I'll talk about the last decade plus of just working with clients and helping them build strategy across their marketing and sales and service programs. So I've been in the HubSpot ecosystem for last over 12 years or so, working both inside HubSpot and now working in the last decade or so with one of the largest North American HubSpot partner agencies. And, my background in this last decade is helping clients build up those programs, helping them reach revenue, build out marketing programs and sales programs to help reach their revenue goals. So that's a big part of what I've been doing. On top of that, I've been, tasked with building new agency programs, new agency services to offer our clients because as innovation continues to go on, like clients continue to need like support in new kinds of ways, need support and training. And so did that for some time. And then last year or so, been helping lead the marketing team at SmartBug, and also, working on driving AI adoption and AI fluency and also helping just with our own internal AI roadmap. So those are big things I've been working on. And, really what brings me here until today's conversation was, I got started when I think as most people did with AI when, ChatGPT came online and, starting to tinker with that and then starting to start to play with custom GPTs. And when I saw what you could do with some of that stuff, I think that's my like first foray into like building agents. And, I think that's really where I got started. It was like identifying really like repetitive tasks that AI could help solve for and like starting to figure out, hey, can we use a custom GPT or an agent to solve for this? And that's really how things got started.
You started building agents now. And it's funny kind of playing with a couple of your public agents. It's clear like you're kind of just building these things that, hey, let's tinker and see what I could do, whether it's kind of some of the gift giving or conferences to go to. But I really like the way you thought about someone would just, hey, can I build something to help me come up with ideas? And so talk about that because I know before we hit record, you kind of shared some ideas about there's a bunch of stuff y'all are building behind the scenes that's interesting, but I imagine some of this tinkering stuff kind of led you to that because you kind of play and see what's possible. As you went into that, right?
Yeah, and that's how I recommend a lot of people get started with building agents, and is just like try to build out a small, very narrow use case and see if like AI can solve for that. And that's really where I got started. But from there, one conversation that I have oftentimes with clients and prospective clients is they like don't know really, they don't have the ideas to get started with like trying to build a tool. They're trying to build like a tool that solves for a problem like from 5 years ago. And it's like I think one of the challenges that organizations are like trying to think about now is like with new consumption-based pricing models, like what do they need to be building for in the future when consumers are more accustomed to like paying for software, paying for anything in a consumption-based model. And so those were some of the agents that I have built that helps people like help business models think about in a world of a consumption-based pricing, like what do you need to be building within your own organization that your customers will be buying from you. So those are some of like the brainstorming types of apps that I've been building, but some of the more useful, really practical agents that I've helped build for our own organization, really help, again, like cut out some of the really like tedious tasks that, Kyle, you probably remember back in the day, you seeing some of these things, these conversations where in a Slack, you have a big like group Slack channel, and you have salespeople that need to come, need to provide their prospective client with some examples of maybe past clients that they've worked with, and how this kind of conversation works is like sales reaches all the 100 people in the channel, and they say, hey, has anybody worked with a manufacturing client? And 100 people get that message. 100 people are like, and like you think about how much time like these really loud conversations like take up for everybody. And so my first like use case was like, well, we all we have to do is aggregate the data of client examples that we've worked with in the past and put that into an agent. And then going forward, instead of like people shouting in Slack for looking for an example, you just ask us, an AI, an agent, and it can surface all these examples. And that was the first use case that I built for. I immediately started saving time for the team, and now that channel that people used to ask for these examples is almost silent. So that was like some of the early ones, and I've continued to just like evolve this thing where now it's like there's a lot more things that it can do for our sales team, marketing team, and service team.
Well, and that's fascinating. So really, it's like, here's something, you identified a problem, figure out, all right, what do I have data-wise to solve with this? And then just come up with a process for it. And that process became a workflow, and that workflow became an agent, right? It really is that simple when you kind of break it down like that for most people. We just kind of can't think outside the box. Like, is this something I could solve for? But to your point, if it's something that 100 people see and it distracts 100 people, that's a lot of lost time to all those people when you add it all up, right? Even if every single one of them only spent 1 minute, that's 100 hours. That's 100 minutes. That's over 1 hour productivity lost right there.
Yeah, it happens throughout the month too. Like, and the bigger your team is, the more customers that you have, the more time that you're just I wouldn't say wasting away, but like you're losing to like that you could be using to be on the phone with that person, or working with your client or your prospect, or building something that's a little bit more useful. And so I think one other part about this agent, I think the toughest part in building something like this is that organizations struggle to aggregate the data for something like that, and that did take some time. Like, we had to go back and look in a decade's worth of clients that we've worked with and kind of pull out examples that were representative of a specific type of client or project. That's what took the most time. But once you do that heavy lifting, like it creates so much value from there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give a shout out to another one of your agents. Like, you've got an agent that does just data set recommendations, right? Like, here's a bunch of use cases that you could kind of load and ideate with it. And then it says, all right, here's the data set you need for it. But to your point, right? Like, how do you go about getting the buy-in for that in an org? Like, to say, hey, we need to clean up, organize this bespoke data in a way that it's easy to consume and aggregate. Like, that seems like that's a whole challenge in of itself, right?
It is. And, we've long had a spreadsheet or a Notion table or something like that has had some of this information for several years. And we started small, and we built this type of database out. But that, it did take someone saying, look, like, we have to have this information aggregated in one place because this is wasting so much time doing this. So it definitely like took someone like taking the initiative and maybe spending a whole Friday like putting this thing together and building on it, and continuing to keep it updated. So but yeah, from there, like once we had it built out, once you had like a clear table of it, so easy to go in and import that into like an agent, like Agent.ai, and be able to leverage that for building agents in the future. But it definitely took some time, and I think some friction that you face with when you're trying to aggregate all that data is like, whose job is it to do that? It's like,
who updates it?
Who updates it? Exactly. Otherwise, your agent's like spitting out old data. So hygiene is an important part of that too.
Yeah, I could see that being a real. And the other interesting, we've spent in a world the last 20 years where companies just, how do we SaaS that? Right? How do we turn this into that? But these kind of use cases that you're talking about, like, it's not a big enough problem. It's not a big enough target addressable market. And how much a company's going to pay for that, right? Like, every company is so different and unique of their need for something like that. It has to be something that's internally championed and kept up with, because no one's going to ever build an off-the-shelf solution for that because it's so niche, right? But I think that's what makes it so valuable. And like, useful to do these kind of things.
I think you're right. I think the future is, organizations using very narrowly use case specific agents or like AI powered workflows to do a lot of this stuff. And I think we're going to see a lot more custom software built in the future that is just designed for that individual or their team or that in that very specific organization. And the cost of like development has come down so much with Replit and so many other like coding AI tools that I think we're going to see a lot more of this in the future.
Yeah, it's only coming. The price of code is pretty much nothing now. And now we're seeing. I was just watching something today where tools are being chained on top of each other. Like you prototype, build an MVP in Lovable, then you take it all over to Cursor, and then you take it over to Claude Code. As you build more and more complexity to it. Like we're already seeing that happening, and that whoever does that, none of those people need to have any coding background, which is fascinating in and of itself.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing more individuals across my team and that are, they don't have a coding background, but they are coming to the table with new ideas that they're able to bring to life with some of these coding tools and with these AI coding tools, and it's inspiring to see like what stuff people are building now.
I'm curious, like that was one great example. You got any other ones you want to share?
I'll kind of take it to like version 2, version 3 of this type of, let's call it a research agent. So one of the big challenges and I think this functionality is eventually just natively going to be baked into CRM systems, but is like a research type of agent. And so when you think about like research agents, like that example finder agent, like I talked about, like companies need that type of thing, but they need a lot of other types of research for when they're meeting with a prospect for the first time. When they're meeting with a prospect, it's like it can take a couple hours essentially to put together, to do the research, to come up with discovery questions, to come up with maybe past clients that you've worked with like that, to think about follow-up emails that you may want to send to them after you meet with them, and so we really took these types of agents and we leveraged some of the Agent.ai functionality and integration functionality with like HubSpot to be able to essentially loop data that comes in from HubSpot, push to Agent.ai, push back into HubSpot. And essentially what we've built is a functionality in our CRM that allows us to put a massive amount of research in at the contact or company level that we wouldn't have been able to do before. And when you think about every single company that comes to the database, if you were to think about that was a couple of hours of research, we think about almost $1 million in efficiency that we've created just by launching this agent for us. And now our sales team is going in better prepared. They're having deeper conversations with prospects. They're not asking surface level like 101 questions. They're asking questions that make them sound a lot more informed on the industry and the challenges and the pain points of the buyer. And so that was an agent that's so powerful, and it's just like now it's just like a pin node on our company contact records, and it's giving so much value to people that are using our CRM.
If I'm understanding you, like you talk about data enrichment, right? Like you take a company, like go out and do the research on the company, pull it back in, dump it into the CRM so it's available for everybody. But I imagine like, and maybe you are, but if you're not, here's an idea for you. Like you could really expand upon that, right? Like you've got all these fields and custom fields that are useful to your agency, your business. Like maybe you want to know the size of the company and you don't get that any other way. And you can go out and find that and dump it into the system, or show me job, you could find some of those people in job roles and populate them, or who knows what sort of bespoke data. Maybe you want to know, some of the website tools that they're currently using. And you could build an agent that goes scrapes their website, says, all right, they're using WordPress, they're using Google Analytics, they're using this and this and this. And you could have all that ready so that even more levels of depth to the sales conversation, because you come in with all of this and you did no research, you just know.
Yeah, and that's exactly, like, those are some of the things that we did include in this research agent is we've added technographic information into there, where it goes and pulls all of that, and it says, maybe they have Marketo, let's say, and so like it'll show you like what are alternatives that we should be recommending based on their existing tech stack. So we pulled that in. We pulled in probably over 1,000 projects of different integrations, migrations that we've done with clients, and we pulled all that in too. So like every single company we talk talked to, we've probably got 10 examples of
So you've
clients
got
that we've
case
worked that are
studies ready.
similar.
Nice. Yeah.
It all pulls in there. So it's company history, it's case studies, it's discovery questions, it's sequence emails. It's like everything you need. So it's like all the salesperson has to do is hopefully pick up the phone and talk to the next person, and they sound informed.
That's great. That's great. And what I imagine too, once again, going back to the last one, that's so bespoke to your company, right? Like, yes, the framework exists, but the data points and the data that you have available, and it might work for another agency, but if someone's trying to sell purple widgets, like they need a totally different set of like customized enrichment data they're trying to build on. Which, yeah, like how do you build a software company in that? Like, but I think it's so useful for companies to have influencers, thought leaders, like innovators like you who are in there like, all right, here's the thing. How do we kind of weave it into the rest of the company, right?
Yeah, and that's one reason why the agent, I built a data set agent that just like recommends specific types of data sets that you should be building as an organization. And I think that's a big part of that. What clients are really, the clients that want to take advantage of AI now, it's like that's where we have to start the conversation is like we can build this really cool agent or AI powered workflow, but if we don't have the data to do it, like it's going to be inconsistent, it's going to hallucinate, we're not going to get the results we need. And so you have to have that foundational data layer and a good quality data set. And I know it's kind of a boring thing to think about or talk about, but like that's where you have to start there.
You have to.
And so that's really where like the foundation starts from. Once you have good quality data, then you can build agents and workflows and AI assistants and all these like insights layers on top of that. But you have to have those pieces first. And that's really where a lot of more clients are asking for that kind of help these days.
I'm sure. How do we do more with less? And, how do we level up people? Because it's so much of that valuable time. Like you said, sales reps, they want to build relationships, not do all this busy work behind the scene. Just let me read something and get on the phone and have a conversation. But if I've got to go spend 4 hours looking at all these things and finding out all this stuff, it slows down everything, right? And it doesn't enable them to do what their superpower is, which is salespeople are relational. They're not, data nerds that want to live in a closet and populate a database or a CRM. So it kind of handles a lot of that stuff for it. But that's really cool. That's really cool. What else? What else are you guys working on? It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the other interesting stuff, and I think we'll see some of this eventually natively get baked into CRM is like how do you pull insights from all of the unstructured data inside of CRM? And so unstructured data being all of the call transcripts and one-to-one emails that are going out, notes that are logged on a contact or deal or company record. How do you take that and drive insights from that? And so, another area that we're exploring is like taking, a week or a month's worth of transcripts from sales calls that came in or client calls and then pulling trend data from that. So like you think about like pull all the calls, pull all your transcripts from Fathom or whatever call tool, you name it, Gong. And, you can stick all that information into an agent to say, okay, what were the goals from clients this last month? What were the integrations that prospects talked about the most this last month? And like from there, that can really help inform like what new services you need to be building, what kinds of people you maybe need to be hiring for, what kinds of new like marketing materials you need to come out for, what new agents you need to go build. And so like those are some other things we're exploring is like how do we take just gigantic amounts of data and then be able to draw like insight from that?
Yeah. Well, and just hearing you think, it's got me thinking like, that's probably really good cross-pollination knowledge that never gets out of the silo, right? Like if it's sales calls, you give that data to marketers. What are the top 5 problems that we heard? Right? There's content, right? Or let's go write some ebook, whatever around this. Or you give that to the CS team and they kind of can identify and know what kind of challenges are coming down the road or what this customer's really like in a way that they don't have to go watch 5 hours of call recording from the sales process or whatever it is. And a lot of times we don't think about how that can all cross-pollinate in a way, but if you've got this queryable repository of all this data, then you could probably build agents or whatever for different roles in the company to access the same data set, but with different use cases, right?
I mean, that's right. And you could take that report that like, let's say we want an executive briefing of this last month's worth of calls. You could then have AI also then take that same bit of data and then apply it from a CS context or a marketing context. And then you have reports for everybody in the organization. And you're really keeping everybody like up to speed on like what those types of conversations are happening, what's happening in the market today. And I think that's always been a challenge for marketing teams and product teams, is like they're building for like problems that maybe customers were talking about 6 months ago or a year ago, and like there's just this lag that's happening. And so I think that this solves for that lag almost in real time.
Well, and I imagine too, if you want to train and coach people, every company has different set of values, but if you know what your 5 or 6 core values, now you just got me nerding out here. But like, you have an agent that can like be that coaching session for those people and said, well, you're not quite up to par on this. You're doing great on these things, and getting that real-time feedback from that agent based on, the call transcription, the work they're already doing. And then you want to, oh my God, there's so much stuff you could do with all of that.
Like with the quality of the call transcripts too has just gotten so much better over the last like 6 months and a year, that like I think that there's a lot more confidence in these call transcripts. It like doesn't just make up words as much as it once did, or like just not be able to understand what you're saying. It can like understand jargon a lot better than it once did. And there's a lot when you're like using a lot of these agents too, like one of the challenges is that like you need to get the data from like one system to like the other. And I think like a lot of these like calling tools, they make it really easy to like one click copy the entire transcript so you can drop it in your LLM. So like they're becoming easier and easier to work with that way. And the integrations are getting better too, to be able to pipe that data in. So yeah, those are the things that we're testing out, is like, how do we drive more insight from the conversations and all the data we're pulling in versus just sitting on this mountain of data.
Kind of lead me to a good follow-up question here. Like, what's been the most surprising part for you of kind of building agents, and kind of maybe it's something you learned along the way, or maybe it's you did something and like, oh my gosh, it just kind of, and maybe it was building some of the early agents and realizing what was possible, but what were some of those things?
Yeah, like surprises and like lessons learned. I try to recommend this. We do some agent building workshops as well with our clients, and some of the big like things lessons learned early on is that like when you're getting into building agents or AI powered workflows for the first time, like don't go try to build something that's so complex that that you're trying to solve this massive problem, multi-threaded problem in your organization. Start small. Start with like a component of the problem and see if you can solve for that first. And I think like when you start small like that, you gain the confidence then to go build on that and to build something bigger. I failed so many times in building custom GPTs and agents because I built something that was beyond, I was in over my head. I was trying to build for AI that wasn't mature enough. I was trying to build for something where I didn't have the data quality that was good enough. And so I think those are, when you're just getting started, that's what I always encourage you to be thinking, to start small. But then the second thing I would also say is like build for the future, because like you may have a problem that you're trying to solve for, and the AI is maybe it's not good enough today, but it's likely going to be there in 6 months, a year at the latest. And I think that's how fast things are moving. Some of my early custom GPTs that I was building, like the AI, we was in like ChatGPT like 3.5, it was like the first one that came out, and like just AI wasn't quite there yet. But I knew like within not too far out, like this thing is going to work and it's going to be awesome. But like at the beginning, it was hallucinating, and like I also just like didn't have the skills in prompting to like I was stuffing too much stuff with the prompt. It wasn't working as consistent as needed to be to get my sales team to use something. So I think those are some of the big things. Start small and build for the future.
I'm curious there. Have you been doing any of that and changed LLMs, like swapped out one model for another, and then all of a sudden like everything just magically started working? Have you had any of those moments?
That's what the beauty is, I think, of Agent.ai, is that you have access to LLMs,
everything,
anyone you want. So and they up as soon as a new model launches, it's in Agent.ai. So props to you all on building that in there. But that's really how within our research agent, I was able to create the output from that agent. What I built up like probably a 10-step agent that for all of like the company research and company news information, we're using like Gemini 2.5. For the sequence emails, I think we're using Claude Opus, or we're using a Claude model. For like one of the other ones that's aggregating our project data, I think I was using ChatGPT, a version of that. So I'm using multiple ones and then aggregating all that, like a final prompt to then pull all the data together. And I feel like doing it that way and having that flexibility to use like multiple LLMs when you're solving for a problem, you can really fine tune like what the output needs to be. And I think like once I got to that level, like it's fun to kind of see how one LLM does responds to a prompt versus another. And we're constantly tweaking that and making it a little bit better and more refined.
And another thing I've heard some builders do, I'm curious, or maybe this is an idea for you. Have you started like modularizing them out, right? Instead of a 10-step workflow, maybe there's 2 or 3 steps that you reuse in other things that you could just call another agent to do that, and then almost work in parallel on some things. Because that seems like something that's becoming more and more popular in the ecosystem too.
Yeah, definitely hearing more about that. I think how we have done that is within like that 10-step workflow. There are certain steps that we then take that and then use it in another agent. I think that we're not doing a ton yet, but it is like when you think about how you scale agents to an organization, like that you're trying to avoid redundancy and people building like the same like prompt or same agent. Like you need a sort of a collective system to have all that info in one place. And it's definitely something we're exploring, like what's the best ways for certain clients to have that configured. And I know Agent.ai, they've got some functionality to be able to trigger like other agents and things like that. So we're also learning as we go. I don't think anybody has this completely figured out yet.
Yeah, everybody's learning. I think that's the beautiful thing of it, and it's only continuing to change. It does feel like it's slowing down the change, but all these things are just more better and more useful, and able to accomplish more and more. What if I not asked you that I have it, Paul? Like anything that y'all kind of played with or discovered, or another story you want to tell that you just want to really get out there and share with the community of kind of some of the things y'all are doing at SmartBug?
Yeah, I think one thing that we're trying to drive now is like AI fluency and adoption. And I think that what I'm seeing and learning from this is that one, like AI adoption and fluency, it really has to be led top down. I think that if you want your organization to be like using the tools, like they need, like your organization, your leaders need to be using AI every single day. Your leaders need to be sharing use cases of how they're driving efficiency or effectiveness or creativity. And so like that's like that in terms of like driving that, I think it has to come from top down. But then on top of that, like I think challenges that we see is that like people that are trying to like leverage AI for the first time or trying to start building agents, they're like standing there waiting to get trained on how to do something. And I think training is really an important part of like how people improve skills or learn new skills and things like that. But I feel like that with AI, it's like you just have to get in there and like experiment with it and test it out and fall in your face a few times over and over to see what works and what doesn't work. You can read a book about AI and it can tell you about like some, different principles and things like that. But until you get in there, like you're not going to really understand how things work. You're not going to be able to connect it to the specific things that you do every single day. And so, one other thing is like to help us drive adoption at SmartBug is we're thinking about, look, our leaders need to be inspiring their team members to be using it. We have to have clear policy to use AI, because if your team doesn't know what is okay and acceptable, what tools to use, they may not use it at all, or they may like start using their own private tools and putting data that they shouldn't be putting data into AI, and so I think it's a multifaceted challenge that organizations have to face in solving for this. And, we're doing a number of these things right now, from training to policy development to inspiring others. But I think at the end of the day, people just got to get in there and use it every day. And that's what's going to make you better at it.
Yeah. If anything you take away from this, everybody, just start playing, start building, come in there. You're a subject matter expert on something. Try to build a workflow for it. Try to build an agent for it. And you'll learn. How can others in the community support you? Like, I saw that you just got announced that you're going to be at Partner Day, HubSpot Partner Day, presenting. Congratulations. Anybody in this network that's going to be at going to be there can come find you there. But how can others help you? How can others connect with you? What kind of support, feedback, are you looking for right now that the community can kind of give you back?
Yeah, so if you're going to be at Inbound September, San Francisco, definitely stop by the SmartBug booth. I'll be there most of the time. Would love to have a conversation on what your AI roadmap looks like for this year and next year. We're going to be talking with a lot of folks about that, how we can help them. But you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Always sharing workshops or videos or things that we're doing from an AI perspective on there. I'd love to hear from you there. Reach out to me anytime. Reach out to SmartBug team at any time. We'd be happy to help you chart out your roadmap for this year and next year. There's a lot of pieces and components that are part of that, building out that roadmap, and we'd be happy to help you just have that free conversation with you to chat with it. So that's probably it right there, Kyle.
Love it. Well, Paul, I really appreciate you taking the time and join the conversation here today. And to everybody out there listening, go give a comment. Give a 5-star review, whatever you want. Help us get the word out, promote this content that we're putting out there. And until next time, keep building and keep growing.